Got a couple Biden clips if you want to hear what he has to say, our president has to say about this.
Just a quick little, just some small little updates here as we go, because news just keeps breaking.
Yeah, news keeps rolling in,
just a little bit of some updates here. A NATO response force has been activated for the first time ever as a defense measure to reassure allies on Russia's border. NATO for really the first time since it's been created.
Formed,
it has is actually testing out this idea of their sort of military.
Well, I mean, they needed a reason
strength
to do it. They've had it there for a while. It's never been activated, so it's like why not? Why not now?
Yeah. Well, now's the time to check it out. And then Chinese state media said that Putin and President Xi Jinping spoke on Friday. Putin agreed to open negotiations to end hostilities. Don't know how those two things are connected, but okay.
There's other ways it could be connected. It's got to do with our president here. This is him talking at a press conference yesterday. President Biden, the aggression cannot go unanswered.
Putin has committed an assault on the very principles that uphold the global peace. But now the entire world sees clearly what Putin and his Kremlin allies are really all about. This was never about a genuine security concerns on their part. It was always about naked aggression, about Putin's desire for empire by any means necessary, by bullying Russia's neighbors through coercion and corruption, by changing borders by force, and ultimately by choosing a war without a cause. Putin's actions betray his sinister vision for the future of our world, one where nations take what they want by force. But it is a vision that the United States and freedom-loving nations everywhere will oppose with every tool of our considerable power. The United States and our allies and partners will emerge from this stronger, more united, more determined, and more purposeful. And Putin's aggression against Ukraine will end up costing Russia dearly, economically and strategically.
Why is he so hard to follow?
I honestly zoned out there for a second.
He's so hard to follow. No, it's not you. I'm telling you, this is part of it. It just kind of lures you to sleep. He's kind of slurring. He meanders. There are words that aren't clear. There were a couple words in there that, depending on what he says, kind of changes the trajectory of what he's talking about. And it drives me crazy that this is our president and he's signing papers. He
sounds like he's falling asleep.
This is. Oh man, I don't want to spend too much time looking for that spot.
No, that's okay. We can just move on. But it is fascinating. This whole thing about the sanctions is an interesting aspect of our world, like the current world order. Yeah, like the current world order after World War II. War is not supposed to be about gaining land, gaining geography, gaining control of another location. I mean, war is just supposed to be about, economics. You're supposed to, go to war and use it to somehow economically, some sort of
changing the flow of money.
A generative action for money purposes. It's for, financial conquering. That's what every war, at least that the U.S. has been involved with, or any major democracy, is just like, you don't really go to war unless like you need some oil or you need to push somebody around and you need to do that.
The U.S. is sitting in a nice spot too, in terms of NATO. Geographically, they're kind of the furthest away, so it's sort of
no.
Like you guys initiate military over there. We'll just kind of sign some papers over here.
Well, see, and that's the point about the NATO response force is that the U.S. is not going to put boots on the ground,
right?
And nobody probably will, and if they do, it'll be under NATO. They're not U.S. troops; they're NATO troops.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a war between the U.S. and Russia. It's NATO and Russia.
Yeah.
But these economic sanctions are hilarious because that is the way, current New World Order wars are fought is economically. But it's interesting that Putin just doesn't care. He just does not care. He's not playing the game. He's breaking those norms.
It appears Putin has rolled out It rolled out the big guns, like literally.
Yeah.
And in comparison,
in a new world order sense,
yes,
it's a really stupid move, because by doing so, he's just bringing the wrath of the economic war machine against him with sanctions and sanctions and sanctions. But he just doesn't care. He's on his own game, man. I loved how Trump said, from a real estate perspective, Putin's got a great thing going on.
Sweet move. Yeah. No, I saw the New York Times article talking about Trump sides with Putin, divides Republicans. It was oh no,
sides with Putin.
Sides with Putin. This is President Biden responding to the sanctions here. So talking about the sanctions.
Did you underestimate Putin? And would you still describe him the way that you did in the summer as a worthy adversary?
At the time, I made it clear as an adversary, and I said he was worthy. I didn't underestimate him. And I've read most of everything he's written. Did you read? I'm not being a wise guy. You heard the speech he made, almost an hour's worth of speeches, why he was going into Ukraine. He has much larger ambitions in Ukraine. He wants to, in fact, reestablish the former Soviet Union. That's what this is about. And I think that his ambitions are completely contrary to the place where the rest of the world has arrived.
And you're confident that these devastating sanctions are going to be as devastating as Russian missiles and bullets and tanks?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Russian bullets, missiles, and tanks in Ukraine.
What?
Yes, I am.
In Ukraine, specifically. That's the weirdest thing. Again, I don't know. It just makes me sad, but also laugh.
Yeah. Well, why don't we jump into this NATO thing just for a second?
Sure.
Just comment on it. We got a couple minutes.
Yeah.
This is coming from CNN, so it's fun. No, we got to see what CNN's got going on. NATO response force activated for the first time. For the first time, the NATO response force has been activated as a defensive measure in response to Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. NATO Supreme Allied Commander. NATO Supreme Allied Commander General
Sounds like a taco.
Yeah. Well, listen, look at how long this is. NATO Supreme Allied Commander General Todd Wolters activated the multinational force consisting of land, air, sea, and special operations forces from the allies that can deploy quickly in support of the NATO alliance. The activation of the response troops does not mean that any U.S. or NATO troops will go into Ukraine, which is not a member. U.S. President Joe Biden, except for we do know that they are going into Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden has been clear that U.S. troops are deploying to Eastern Europe to help bolster NATO countries nervous about Russia's aggressive actions, and they will not be fighting in Ukraine. Quote, and this explains the presence of American forces in places like Poland, Hungary, Lithuania. Quote, this is an historic moment and the very first time the alliance has employed these high readiness forces in a deterrence and defense role. They represent a flexible, combat credible force that can be employed in multiple ways, and we are utilizing fully their inherent agility. Ooh, they're like little ninjas. Wolters said in a statement, quote, these deterrence measures are prudent and enhance our speed, responsiveness, and capability to shield and protect the 1 billion citizens we swore to protect. Whoa, 1 billion. The force has not yet deployed, but is on standby. It's not clear how many troops the response will contain. I wonder if this came out, there's an update to this. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Friday that the alliance still needed to do more to put pressure on the Kremlin to bring an end to military aggression in Ukraine. Quote, we must stand ready to do more, even if it means we have to pay the price. What? Do more? What price? Because we are in this for the long haul, he said. Quote, we have to take this seriously, and that's exactly why we are now deploying the NATO response force for the first time in a collective defense context. The entire NATO response force is 40,000 troops. But Stoltenberg did not say how many would be activated, telling reporters, quote, "We are deploying elements of the force." In a message released Friday morning, Zelensky thanked NATO for its support, but urged the alliance to do more, lamenting the fact that Ukraine was left to fend for itself. Quote, "We are alone in defending our country. Who is ready to defend us together with us? Honestly, I don't see any," Zelensky said. Who is ready to give Ukraine a guarantee of joining NATO? Honestly, everyone is afraid. Yeah, nobody wants to let you into NATO. Sorry, buddy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what a sticky situation Ukraine is in. Yeah. So it's kind of a big deal. This whole NATO thing's been going on for a long time. And for this to be the very first time to have their forces actually deployed is an historic moment, like CNN said.